Unbelievable but true. Ferrari has just fired Lewis Hamilton in a brutal and unexpected move right after the Bahrain Grand Prix. This shocking decision has sent shockwaves through the F1 world, and no one saw it coming. If this is the first video you're watching about this massive F1 earthquake, make sure to stick around until the end, because I'm going to uncover the real and controversial reason why Ferrari's top bosses pulled the trigger and ended Hamilton's journey with the team in the most cold-blooded way possible. You're not going to believe what's really going on behind the scenes. It was supposed to be a historic celebration of speed and glory at the legendary Suzuka circuit, a weekend of adrenaline, precision, and awe. Fans flew in from all corners of the globe to witness two titans in red, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, take on the twisting beast of Japan's most iconic track. But no one, not even the most seasoned paddock veterans, could have predicted the sheer chaos, betrayal, and backstabbing that would unfold behind the closed doors of the Ferrari garage. What began as a standard race weekend detonated into a full-blown civil war inside Formula One's most iconic team. And at the epicenter of the explosion? A catastrophic rift between a seven-time world champion and Ferrari's poster boy that has now left the team on the brink of implosion, and Lewis Hamilton's legendary legacy hanging by a thread. This isn't just gossip. This isn't just paddock drama. This is the story everyone inside the sport is whispering about, texting frantically behind the scenes, and scrambling to keep under wraps. But the truth is spilling out, and it's uglier than anyone imagined. It all blew up on a quiet Thursday night, the kind of night that should have been uneventful, boring even, filled with data briefings, tire compound charts, and technical mumbo-jumbo. Instead, it turned into a bloodbath. Lewis Hamilton, the man brought in to resurrect Ferrari from the ashes of mediocrity, was blindsided by a betrayal so raw, so disrespectful, that his reaction sent shockwaves through the team. During a closed-door technical meeting, a low-ranking engineer, probably now jobless, accidentally let it slip. Charles Leclerc was getting exclusive access to a brand-new floor upgrade for FP1. Not both drivers. Just Charles. The very upgrade that had been promised to Hamilton. Promised. Guaranteed. Repeatedly assured. Lewis froze. The air was sucked out of the room. Without a word, he stood up, glared at the team bosses, and stormed out. No tantrum. No shouting. Just pure, controlled fury, and a silence that screamed betrayal louder than any words ever could. From that moment on, the Ferrari paddock descended into madness. Senior staff rushed to contain the fallout, but it was too late. Hamilton's trust had been obliterated. Insiders revealed that he confronted Frederic Vasseur behind closed doors in a fiery exchange that reportedly included the words, "I don't care who you think runs this team. I came here to win, not to play second fiddle to your golden boy." Mechanics were stunned. Engineers stopped sharing data. Two factions formed inside Ferrari's walls, Team Charles and Team Lewis. And the knives were out. According to sources buried deep inside Maranello, this wasn't some innocent engineering decision. This was a calculated, politically motivated ambush, orchestrated by a pro-Leclerc faction terrified that Hamilton might arrive and immediately eclipse their beloved Monégasque prince. After all, Leclerc may have grown up inside Ferrari, but Hamilton brought with him the power of a global brand, a mountain of championships, and the attention of every major sponsor. And that scared people. Really scared people. In the days leading up to Suzuka, those fears morphed into sabotage. They fed Leclerc the upgrade first. They delayed Hamilton's floor. They spun stories about telemetry consistency and strategic rollout, all smokescreens. What really happened was a power grab inside the most political garage in Formula One. Hamilton wasn't just fighting a teammate. He was fighting an empire. And the empire didn't want to share the crown. By Friday, the garage was a minefield. Hamilton showed up, eyes dead cold, lips sealed, surrounded by a bubble of tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. His car was twitchy, sluggish, unstable. Meanwhile, Leclerc flew through the corners like he'd unlocked an entirely new level of grip. Hamilton's voice on the radio told the whole story, icy, curt, biting. "Are you sure this is the same baseline?" he asked. The response from his engineer was robotic, desperate. "Yes, Lewis, same base, except the floor." Another silence. Another gut punch. That night, things went from bad to nuclear. Hamilton demanded a closed-door meeting with Ferrari's inner circle. What took place in that room, according to one insider, was nothing short of volcanic. Hamilton laid into them, Not just about the upgrade, but about the entire culture of favoritism and deception that had plagued his integration. He accused top staff of deliberately keeping him in the dark, of treating him like an outsider, of protecting Leclerc at all costs. He didn't threaten to quit. He didn't have to. The message was clear: fix this, or I burn it all down. Outside that meeting, Ferrari's staff were divided. Some were panicking. Others were smug. One engineer reportedly whispered, "He'll never survive here. Charles has this place wrapped around his finger." Another, clearly rattled, admitted, "We may have just lost the best shot at a title we've had in years." Then came Sunday. Forget the race. Nobody cared about the positions. Leclerc finishing ahead of Hamilton was irrelevant compared to the carnage behind the scenes. The real story was in the death stares. In the refusal to speak. In the way Hamilton walked past Leclerc like he didn't exist. No handshake. No eye contact. Nothing. This wasn't a rivalry. This was a Cold War. And it was on. Media outlets began sniffing around. Social media exploded with speculation. Hashtags like hashtag Ferrari Civil War and hashtag Justice for Lewis trended worldwide. Fans picked sides. Leclerc loyalists claimed Hamilton was being entitled. Hamilton's army accused Ferrari of institutional betrayal. And in the middle of it all, the Ferrari PR team scrambled to put out fires faster than they could erupt. But the truth is, this isn't going away. Because this wasn't just about a floor upgrade. This was about the soul of Ferrari. Who leads? Who gets protected? Who gets sacrificed? And the most haunting part? This might only be the beginning. There are whispers that Hamilton's camp has already reached out to allies at Mercedes. That Toto Wolff is watching and waiting. That Leclerc's camp is preparing for a public statement to clarify the misunderstandings. That sponsors are furious behind the scenes. That Maranello itself is bracing for impact. One thing's for sure, the Lewis-Charles partnership is dead. The unity is broken. And the dream of a Ferrari resurgence with Hamilton at the helm is quickly morphing into a nightmare of political treachery, internal warfare, and shattered trust. This isn't Formula One as you know it. This is betrayal. Sabotage. Collapse. This is Ferrari like you've never seen it before. An eyewitness, someone who later claimed they feared for their career just by being present, described the atmosphere inside Ferrari's debrief room as nuclear. The kind of silence that doesn't feel calm, but charged, like the air before a lightning strike. It wasn't just tension anymore, it was something far uglier. Something irreversible. Lewis Hamilton, fresh out of the car after a frustrating FP1 plagued with instability and inexplicable performance drop-offs, was staring down telemetry screens like a detective finding blood at a crime scene. His face was unreadable, but his silence was louder than any radio message. Everyone in that room knew he was seconds away from eruption. A performance engineer, young and still naive enough to think he could speak without consequences, stepped forward with what he believed was helpful context. He pointed out a small but critical difference between Hamilton's and Leclerc's energy output in Sector 2. Calmly, almost nervously, he muttered, "Looks like Charles had slightly stronger deployment out of Turn 6. Could be a mapping offset. Maybe that's where the time's coming from." You could almost hear the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. Lewis leaned forward, elbows on the edge of the desk, eyes locked on the traces with surgical focus. He didn't speak for what felt like an eternity. And then, like a guillotine dropping, he cut the silence in half. "So now we're blaming the telemetry," he said, his voice dipped in venom. "Why not just say he's the team's golden child and stop feeding me fairy tales?" The engineer turned ghost white. He didn't say another word. He packed up his laptop with trembling hands and left the room without a glance back. And here's the wild part. No one saw him again. For the rest of the weekend. Gone. Vanished. Some say he quit. Others say he was sent away to prevent further complications. Either way, that was the spark. The explosion? That came next. By Friday morning, the Ferrari garage was walking on a knife's edge. You didn't need to hear words to feel it. You could see it. Body language said everything. Mechanics avoided eye contact. Engineers whispered like teenagers in detention. Even team principal Frederic Vasseur was keeping a suspiciously low profile. No meetings. No pep talks. Just closed doors and unanswered questions. Everyone was waiting for the bomb to go off. FP2 rolled around and the differences were staggering. Charles Leclerc, smooth, confident, almost smug, put in a lap that screamed dominance. Top of the timesheets. Purple in all the right places. Effortless. Meanwhile, Hamilton looked like he was driving through quicksand. Understeer. Bogged down acceleration. Top speed deficits that made 0 sense. He was wrestling the car like it was actively sabotaging him. By the end of the session, he was nowhere near Leclerc's pace. But the real show didn't start until he stepped out of the car. Helmet off. No eye contact. No words. No nods to engineers. Not even a glance at the camera crew waiting outside the garage. He walked straight into the debrief room like a man possessed. Not angry. Not loud. Just deadly focused. And that's when things went off the rails. Inside, Leclerc was already chatting with his race engineer, casually sipping from his sleek custom bottle, laughing softly in French, totally at ease. Like the session had been a walk in the park. Hamilton walked in, scanned the data screen, and zoomed in on turn 6. That was the moment everything snapped. Why is he getting more deployment out of turn 6? Lewis asked, his voice razor sharp. That's not the configuration I was told we were using. No one moved. Until Charles, without even looking up, casually threw a grenade. Maybe talk to your engineer instead of whining, he said, with a smirk that could have ignited jet fuel. What happened next belongs in a movie. Hamilton didn't raise his voice. He didn't blink. He took a step forward, eyes locked on Leclerc like a predator. You're not just arrogant, he said, slow and surgical. You're delusional. This whole place has been rigged in your favor since day one. You're not fast, you're protected. Charles stood, calm, almost amused. You don't belong here, Lewis, he said. You never have. This isn't your kingdom. It never will be. That's when Lewis lost it. He grabbed the telemetry tablet and launched it like a missile across the room. It shattered against the wall with a thunderous crack, splinters flying in every direction. Every single person in that room jumped. One engineer ducked. Another spilled his coffee. Someone whispered, "Oh my God," under their breath. And right then, as if summoned by fate, Frederick Vasseur walked through the door. He didn't even have time to ask what happened. Lewis turned on him with the fury of a man betrayed. You brought me here for what? To play second fiddle to this little prince, he shouted. To be lied to about setups and watch him get upgrades I don't even hear about until it's too late? You treat him like the future and me like a rental. You think that's how you win championships? Vasseur tried to respond, but Hamilton cut him off again, this time stepping forward like he was ready to flip the entire team upside down. I'm not here to be anyone's understudy, he snapped. I'm not here to be silenced. Either this team gets real with me, or I walk. Mid-season. I'll pack up and leave before the damn summer break. Leclerc crossed his arms, calm as a sniper, and delivered the final dagger. Then go, he said. No one's begging you to stay. This isn't Mercedes. You can't bully your way to the top here. An engineer had to physically step between them. That's how close they were. Lewis didn't say another word. He stared at Charles for 3 seconds, eyes burning, then turned and stormed out of the room. The door slammed so hard it rattled the glass in its frame. He didn't show up to the debrief. He didn't talk to media. He ignored internal messages. That night, unconfirmed reports claimed Hamilton demanded an urgent call with Ferrari president John Elkann, alone, no intermediaries. Some say he's drawing a line in the sand. Others whisper he's preparing to walk away from Ferrari altogether. And there's even one wild rumor that Toto Wolff has already been in contact. Whatever happens next, one thing is absolutely certain: the honeymoon is over. This is not just a rivalry. This is war. So this is what you call leadership? Lewis Hamilton's voice tore through the Ferrari debrief room like a missile breaking sound barriers, stopping every heartbeat and every whisper in its tracks. The 7-time world champion didn't just raise his voice. He launched it like a weapon, laced with disgust, betrayal, and nuclear-grade frustration. You sit there and let that spoiled little show pony throw shade at me, while you secretly funnel him advantages like you're building him a golden staircase to the championship. Are we racing or playing favorites in a high school drama club? The air turned to ice. Engineers froze mid-keystroke. Analysts pretended to study meaningless data just to avoid looking up. It wasn't just awkward, it was radioactive. Charles Leclerc stood across the room, arms folded like a statue sculpted from pure arrogance, lips curled into a smug half-smile that practically begged for a fight. But he didn't get a chance to respond, yet. Frédéric Vasseur, Ferrari's team principal and until now the calm amidst a chaotic season, tried to intervene with a tone of forced command. He raised his voice for the first time in months. Enough. Both of you. This is not. But Hamilton cut him off so hard it was like slamming the brakes at 320 kilometers per hour. You told me I'd be equal. You looked me dead in the face, eye to eye, man to man, and said, Lewis, you're not here to play second fiddle. You're here to lead. And I believed you. I actually bought into the dream. But this? This is a farce. This isn't equality, it's a betrayal dressed in a red uniform. You could hear the fluorescent lights humming. The room was paralyzed. Even the coffee machine in the corner went eerily quiet. Vasseur, now visibly rattled, swallowed hard before replying. His voice cracked like a rookie on the ropes. Lewis, we gave you everything. The spec you demanded. The crew you requested. Your own development path. If you feel like this isn't the right environment, maybe we miscalculated. Boom. That was it. The explosion. The atomic moment. Hamilton's eyes went wide with disbelief. Then he leaned forward with a fire in his gaze that could melt carbon fiber. You miscalculated? No, Fred, you used me. You brought me in to polish your image. To throw headlines at your sponsors and say, look, we've got the greatest of all time in our car. You weren't building a team, you were building a circus. And I was your main act. He turned to Charles now, not with words, but with a stare that could burn through titanium. You never wanted me to lead. You wanted me to decorate the podium while you rigged the system in his favor. I was your poster boy. He's your prince. Charles stepped forward, his face turning crimson, fists clenched at his sides. Your ancient history, Lewis. You're clinging to a crown that doesn't exist anymore. This is a new world, and you're not part of it. You're not royalty, you're just another relic begging for attention. Hamilton took one slow step forward until they were nose to nose. The tension was unbearable. A single spark would have been enough to turn the entire debrief room into a war zone. And then, in a whisper that was more terrifying than a shout, Lewis dropped a line that would become legendary in leaked staff accounts. Entitled brat, silver spoon puppet, you were born into this team. I built my legacy. And I'm not here to babysit a Monaco mannequin. That was the moment security burst through the door. Actual security. Not PR flunkies or assistants with walkie-talkies. We're talking full-suited, earpiece-wearing, crisis-trained personnel. The kind of guys you only see when things go very wrong. They didn't walk in, they stormed in, like nightclub bouncers stepping into a VIP meltdown. One of them approached carefully. Sir, we need to contain the situation. But Lewis wasn't done. Not even close. Without flinching, without looking away, he said with spine-chilling calm. I'll leave when I decide. Not because some pampered rookie caught feelings. Not because management blinked. When I walk out that door, it's because I've already won the only race that matters, the truth. He turned. Walked straight out. Didn't look back. And just like that, the energy collapsed like a deflated tire. No more yelling. No more eye contact. Just a room full of stunned faces trying to process what the hell had just happened. He skipped the next meetings. He ghosted every attempt at communication. No replies. No sightings. Like a storm that vanishes without a trace but leaves devastation behind. That evening, whispers turned into roars across the paddock. Lewis cleared out his hotel room. His physio booked a private flight. He called Toto. He's lawyering up to expose internal data favoritism. Ferrari HQ entered DEFCON 1. Sponsors were losing their minds. Shell had to redirect top executives from a Japan Energy Summit to an emergency legal sit-down. Puma was scrambling. Richard Mille threatened to pull branding from upcoming campaigns. Ferrari's comms team drafted and trashed 5 different press releases in 2 hours. And just when it felt like the chaos couldn't escalate any further, it did. At 11:47 p.m. local time, Hamilton posted a cryptic message on his X account. No image. No context. Just stark white text on a pure black background. Legacy isn't bought. Legacy isn't given. Legacy is earned. Remember that. Number 44-inch. No follow-up. No clarification. No public appearance. The F1 world collectively lost its mind. Sky Sports scrambled a panel. Reddit melted. Mercedes fans held their breath. Ferrari fans imploded. Even Netflix producers reportedly requested footage within hours. And behind the scenes? Ferrari's leadership knew it wasn't just a PR problem anymore. It was a legacy war. And they had just poked the wrong legend. You won't believe what just happened in Suzuka. Formula One hasn't just had a scandal. It's witnessed a full-blown meltdown of epic proportions that's tearing the sports foundation to pieces. This isn't a rumor. This isn't tabloid gossip. This is a nightmare made real. A PR apocalypse. And at the center of the storm? None other than Sir Lewis Hamilton, the sport's most iconic figure, now brutally cast aside like yesterday's news in a jaw-dropping betrayal that fans will be screaming about for years. It all started not with an engine failure, not with a crash, but with something so deceptively small, so seemingly innocent, that no one could have predicted the seismic chaos it would unleash. A single Instagram story. 9 seconds long. No words spoken. No music. Just a shot of Hamilton sitting completely alone in his motorhome, hoodie up, head down, the silence practically screaming in anguish. And then came the line. The one that set the entire world on fire. Surrounded by snakes. But I've always walked alone. Deleted 5 minutes later. But that was 5 minutes too late. Screenshots spread like wildfire, faster than a Red Bull pit stop, bouncing through the phones of mechanics, managers, influencers, even rival team bosses. By the time Ferrari's executives saw it, it had already detonated across the grid like an emotional hand grenade. And then, Ferrari pulled the nuclear trigger. At exactly 7:32 a.m., race day, just hours before lights out, Hamilton received a termination letter so cold, so clinical, it could have been written by a robot. His contract? Shredded. His pass? Deactivated. His reputation with the Scuderia? Torched. The letter cited multiple violations, irreparable breakdown of trust, and accused him of damaging the sacred image of Ferrari, the holy grail of racing. There was no warning. No discussion. Just exile. Instant and brutal. By the time the paddock opened, Hamilton's name was already being wiped off his garage wall. Mechanics looked like they were handling radioactive material as they packed up his things in silence. His engineers, men who had worked with him for months, were abruptly reassigned. His seat sat empty. The telemetry monitors he once commanded like a general were powered down, erased like a memory no one wanted to confront. No press conference. No tweet. No goodbye. No trace. Lewis Hamilton had vanished. And the silence left behind? Absolutely deafening. Inside Ferrari, panic exploded. Carlos Sainz refused to speak to anyone. His face pale, his body language rigid. He didn't even show up to the post-race debrief. His father, legendary driver Carlos Sainz Sr., was seen in an all-out verbal showdown with a Ferrari board member, their conversation so fiery that security began to circle. Charles Leclerc, meanwhile, put on his best impression of a mannequin. When asked for comment, he said with robotic detachment, "We're focused on the race. Nothing else." No emotion. No solidarity. Just cold, rehearsed lines. But don't let the silence fool you. The F1 world is in flames. Sponsors are fuming. Rumors are multiplying like wild animals. Was this a premeditated exit plan by Hamilton? A digital mic drop to burn the bridge with style? Or did Ferrari push him so far into the shadows that he had no other option but to go nuclear? Whispers are turning into roars. Some say he was sabotaged from the inside. Others claim he was locked out of key strategy calls. Even wilder stories suggest Ferrari favored Leclerc so heavily that Lewis was left driving blind. Truth? Lie? No one knows. But everyone's watching. The betrayal runs deep. This wasn't just a failed contract. This was a catastrophic collapse of trust between a living legend and the world's most glorified racing team. It's like watching royalty get dragged out of a palace, stripped of their crown, and shoved into the darkness without explanation. The same Ferrari that celebrated his signing with champagne and fireworks now acts like he never existed. Their social media? Scrubbed. Their press teams? Muted. Their paddock? Locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Hamilton's fans are in total revolt. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, it's a digital war zone. The hashtag Justice for Lewis is trending globally. Comment sections are exploding with fury. Even non-F1 celebrities are chiming in. Ferrari's once flawless image is collapsing in real time, with millions demanding answers. Some are calling it the biggest betrayal in sports history. Others are going further, calling it career assassination. And yet, Hamilton remains silent. Not a post. Not a video. Not a single word. That silence? It's not weakness. It's terrifying power. Because when Hamilton speaks, and he will speak, it won't be a whisper. It'll be a thunderclap. A tell-all that could reduce Ferrari's entire empire to rubble. Sources close to the Mercedes camp are already hinting at quiet conversations. McLaren has allegedly reached out. Aston Martin is lurking. The king without a kingdom won't stay exiled for long. And when he returns, the world will stop to watch. What happened at Suzuka is more than a scandal. It's a turning point in Formula One history. It's the day we all saw what happens when power meets ego, when legacy collides with control, when silence becomes a weapon. This wasn't a driver leaving a team. This was a battlefield. A war. A betrayal so deep it will echo for generations. And while the race went on, while the engines roared and the champagne sprayed, one absence screamed louder than everything else combined. Hamilton wasn't there. But his shadow loomed over every corner, every screen, every conversation. Like a ghost that refuses to rest. The real story of Suzuka 2025 isn't about who won. It's about who was erased. And who's about to return.